Usually when a giant software company undergoes a massive restructuring, it feels like a controlled demolition.
Right, like you see the warning signs.
Exactly. The
Uh,
scaffolding goes up, the weak pillars are sort of carefully removed. It's very methodical. But when a powerhouse like Wix suddenly announces they're slashing roughly 1,000 jobs,
which is huge, yeah.
yeah, it's a full 20% of their entire global workforce. And they directly cite the transition to AI as the cause. I mean, that is not a controlled demolition. That is a completely sudden, ground-shifting earthquake.
Oh, for sure. And the shockwaves from this, they're being felt far beyond just their headquarters in Tel Aviv.
Hmm.
We're really watching the tectonic plates of the whole global software industry colliding in real time.
We are definitely standing at the epicenter of an industry earthquake today. But before we measure the Richter scale on these layoffs, I need you to take a second to like, subscribe, follow, and hit that notification bell right now.
Yeah, it's the only way we can keep bringing you these deep dives.
Exactly. Okay. And real quick, a strict 15-second mandatory update on the Martin Stevens versus OpenAI matter. It is still not a lawsuit. Martin requested a voluntary quiet period to idle public info. We hope for a background settlement, but I am not implying any actual progress is happening. And the dead man's switch has not been activated. Martin is physically and legally safe.
Good to have that cleared up.
Right. So let's unpack the real mission for today. We're looking at these historic Wix layoffs, not just as, one single company's crisis, but as the absolute clearest blueprint we have yet for the AI era reset.
Which is just completely reshaping the software world right now.
It really is. So we're going to explore their massive acquisition of this AI startup called Base 44, the very real potential death of traditional developer roles, and why AI might be making software incredibly easy to build, but almost impossible to defend as a profitable business.
Yeah, and to really grasp the magnitude of why Wix is eliminating 1,000 out of its, I think it's 5,277 employees, we have to separate the signal from the noise here.
Right, because there's a lot of noise.
So much noise. Their CEO, Avishai Abrahami, he presented two very distinct narratives to the public. I mean, he pointed a finger heavily at AI, but he also outlined some severe financial realities.
Well, let's start with the money, because that's always where the truth is, right? Abrahami blames something he called structural pressure from currency imbalances. Walk me through the mechanics of that.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
How does a currency fluctuation force a tech giant to lay off a fifth of its staff?
So it comes down to a fundamental mismatch between how Wix makes its money and how it pays its bills. Wix is an Israeli company, but they operate on a global scale.
Right, obviously.
So when a small business owner in Ohio or, a freelancer in London pays for a Wix subscription, that revenue comes in as US dollars or euros. The vast majority of their income is in dollars.
Okay, that makes sense.
But they pay their massive engineering and support workforce in Israel using the local currency, which is the shekel.
Oh, so they're just constantly at the mercy of the exchange rate.
Profoundly so. And the exchange rate has been brutal to them. I mean, the shekel gained about 14% against the dollar in 2025. And it's added another 7% so far in 2026.
Wait, let me pause you on that. If the shekel is getting stronger, why is that bad for an Israeli company? Shouldn't a strong local currency be a good thing?
I mean, it's great if you're an Israeli consumer buying imported goods. It is terrible if you're a global exporter of software.
Really? How so?
Think about it this way. Your subscription revenue in dollars stays perfectly flat, right? A $20 monthly plan is still just $20.
Right.
But because the shekel gained 21% in value over the last year and a half, the equivalent dollar cost of paying your Israeli engineers just skyrocketed by 21%.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, your payroll costs ballooned, and you haven't even given a single employee a raise.
Okay.
It quietly inflates your entire cost base in ways you can't engineer your way out of.
That is wild. And that perfectly frames the paradox I saw in their first quarter numbers for 2026. I mean, if you just looked at the top line, you'd think they were popping champagne.
Oh yeah, the revenue looked great.
It did. Revenue grew 14.3% to $541.2 million. That is incredibly healthy growth for a mature tech company. But then you look at the bottom line.
And it's a completely different story.
Yeah, despite pulling in over $500 million in revenue, they posted a massive $57.5 million net loss.
Exactly. And the culprit for that loss wasn't just the currency mismatch either.
Yeah.
Operating expenses jumped by a staggering 50%, hitting $423 million in a single quarter.
Which naturally caused the market to just brutally react. I mean, their stock price has collapsed by nearly 50% since January of this year.
Yeah, it's been a bloodbath.
Their market cap is hovering around $2 billion right now, which is a mind-blowing drop from their peak of nearly $20 billion back in 2021.
It's just a staggering loss of value.
But here's the part that genuinely confuses me. Right before this massive downturn, Wix executed a $1.6 billion share buyback. They essentially drained their cash reserves down to $900 million.
Yep, they did.
Why would a company burn that much cash right before undertaking a massive AI transition?
Well, that is the multi-billion-dollar question, isn't it? And it's fueling a massive debate across the tech industry right now. It leads directly to this concept of AI washing.
Oh, yeah, AI washing. Sam Altman actually used that term recently, right?
Yeah.
It almost feels like a homeowner who goes bankrupt and they tell all their friends it happened because they installed a fancy new smart thermostat that ruined their electrical grid.
Right, blame the tech.
Exactly. But if you actually look at their bank statements, you see they just blew their life savings on a Ferrari and maxed out their credit cards.
That is a perfect analogy.
So, is Wix, the homeowner, blaming the thermostat? Are they using this futuristic AI narrative as just a convenient cover story for laying off a workforce they overhired during the post-COVID boom, compounded by a terrible financial decision with that stock buyback?
I mean, human resources departments everywhere are actively trying to parse this out right now. Like, how much of any mass layoff is genuine technological displacement, and how much is just correcting past financial mismanagement?
Probably a bit of both, usually.
Yeah. And with Wix, the financial missteps are undeniable. But we cannot dismiss the technology side as just a smokescreen. The shift they're undergoing is completely unprecedented.
Because of the acquisition.
Exactly. Because they didn't just fire human workers to save money, they literally went out and bought the automated replacement.
Which brings us to the most fascinating part of this whole restructuring. Let's talk about where that massive spike in operating expenses is actually going.
The AI investments.
Yeah. Over the past year, Wix acquired an Israeli AI startup called Base44 for $80 million to be the engine behind their new platform, Wix Harmony. And the entire buzzword surrounding this is vibe coding.
Vibe coding. It's completely upending how we think about software creation right now.
But what does vibe coding actually mean under the hood? Like, is that just a slick marketing term for prompt engineering?
No, it's actually much more advanced than that. For the last 20 years, building a website on a platform like Wix meant starting with a pre-designed template, right?
Yeah, and then just dragging and dropping text boxes and image blocks onto a screen.
Exactly. But you were always constrained by the architecture of that template. Vibe coding eliminates the visual editor entirely. You open a blank text box and you use natural language.
Like talking to ChatGPT.
Exactly like that. You just type, create a sleek portfolio site for a freelance photographer, give it a dark mode aesthetic, integrate a Stripe payments portal, and add a calendar booking form.
And it just builds it, like the whole thing.
Instantly. And it's not pulling a pre-made template from a database. The AI generative model is actively writing custom HTML, CSS, and backend logic on the fly, based purely on the vibe and the parameters you typed.
That is insane.
Yeah, it creates a bespoke, fully functional application in seconds.
And I mean, the numbers prove people really want this. By May 2026, Base44 hit an annual recurring revenue of $150 million.
Which is wild.
They completely blew past their internal schedules. Wix even ran a Super Bowl commercial specifically for this feature. It was so successful that Wix had to pay Base44's founder, Mayor Shlomo, an additional $38 million this past quarter just because he hit those milestone metrics early.
You definitely got a nice payday out of it.
Seriously. But here's the catch. If an AI model is doing the work of a dozen designers and developers, why aren't their costs plummeting? Like, they fired the humans, shouldn't they be saving money?
You'd think so, but replacing human intelligence with artificial intelligence isn't actually cheaper right now.
Okay.
It just shifts the cost from payroll to server farms.
Uh,
Running proprietary AI models requires massive compute power. Every single time a user types a prompt to generate a website, the AI has to run billions of calculations. That incurs what we call inference costs.
Okay, wait. Explain inference costs for a second. Why is that different from just hosting a normal website?
Sure. So when you load a traditional website, the server just retrieves a static file and sends it to your browser, right? It costs fractions of a penny.
Great, it's super cheap.
But when you ask a generative AI to build something, it has to actively think. It engages massive clusters of GPUs, graphics processing units, which consume incredible amounts of electricity and silicon overhead.
So it's actively working every time.
Exactly. That continuous, heavy computational load is exactly what is driving that 50% spike in Wix's operating expenses. The AI is doing the labor, but the electricity required to power that labor is astronomically expensive.
That makes total sense. And, there is a brilliant debate happening in the developer community right now about the long-term viability of
Oh
this.
yeah, I've seen some of those threads.
Yeah, like if AI commoditizes the act of making a website, if I can just vibe code a beautiful application in 10 seconds, what exactly is Wix's moat anymore?
It's a great question.
Think about building a physical house. If an AI machine comes along that can instantly print the blueprints and perfectly frame the wooden walls for pennies, I mean, that's a miracle.
Right.
But you still need an expert to connect the plumbing, run the electrical wiring, pour the concrete foundation, and, make sure the roof doesn't cave in.
That's a really good way to look at it, because in the software world, the walls and the paint are the visual interface, the part the AI just learned how to do instantly.
Right.
The plumbing and electricity, that's the back end. It's the hosting infrastructure, the cybersecurity protocols, the database scaling, and ensuring the site actually has 99.9% uptime.
So Wix basically has to pivot from selling you the design tools to selling you the plumbing.
Exactly. They realize their value proposition is completely shifting away from the visual interface. But to successfully make that pivot and to afford the crushing compute costs of running Base 44, they are fundamentally altering the physical and organizational structure of the human employees they are actually keeping.
And the internal upheaval from that sounds incredibly intense. I mean, Avishai Abrahami framed this entire transition as the most significant change in how companies are built since the 1970s.
Like when programming languages were first invented.
Yeah. So they are actively flattening the organization, stripping away layers of middle management. But the most jarring policy change is the physical requirement.
You're talking about the return to office mandate.
Yes. Company President Nir Zohar mandated a full return to office starting February 1st, 2026.
Right, across all their major hubs.
Exactly. Tel Aviv, Beersheba, Krakow, and Vilnius. Though there's a notable and totally understandable exception for their teams operating in Ukraine.
Yeah, of course.
But Zohar argued that in a hyper-competitive AI era, you just cannot survive with remote work. You need in-person collaboration to generate speed and creativity. But, I mean, think about the psychology of that for a second. How is an employee supposed to process this?
It creates a fascinating, almost dystopian psychological environment, honestly. You are demanding your remaining workforce commute back to physical desks to work harder and faster, all while utilizing the exact same AI algorithm that just made 20% of their friends redundant.
Literally. You walk into the office, grab your coffee, sit down, and your new best collaborator is the machine that fired your desk mate.
It's dark. And Wix has actually created a brand new job title to define this grim new reality. They call it the X-Engineer.
The X-Engineer. Wow. What is that exactly?
Well, the X-Engineer is essentially the blueprint for the developer of the future. It's described as a design-first engineer who uses AI as the core of absolutely every workflow.
So they aren't just typing out code anymore.
Right. An X-Engineer isn't sitting there writing boilerplate code character by character. They're acting more like a manager of machines. They orchestrate specialized AI agents to write the code, run the tests, and deploy the software.
And what does the human do?
The human's only job is to refine the final output.
Man. So is the X-Engineer a brilliant evolution of human capability, or is it just the final stepping stone before we see the end of traditional human coding altogether?
That is the big debate right now.
Abrahami himself seems to lean toward the darker outcome. He offered a remarkably stark philosophical warning recently. He expressed genuine concern about artificial general intelligence, or AGI, eventually outsmarting humans.
Yeah, so that quote.
His exact quote was that if computers surpass us, humans will become the monkeys.
Yeah, I mean, when the CEO of a publicly traded tech company openly compares his future workforce to primates being outpaced by their own tools, it really highlights a profound existential anxiety at the highest levels of the industry.
It really does.
Because if we zoom out from Wix, we see very clearly that they are not an isolated case here. They're just the canary in the coal mine.
Let's look at that macro data, because this is fundamentally reshaping the global tech ecosystem. I mean, over 134,000 U.S. tech jobs have been cut across 212 distinct layoff events so far in 2026 alone.
Massive.
It is. We are talking about the biggest players on Earth. Meta, Cisco, Intuit, they are actively and publicly replacing content creation, customer support, and basic coding roles with automated systems.
And we can look even closer to Wix's home turf in Israel, too. The fintech giant Rapid is currently carrying out AI-driven layoffs.
Wow, them too.
Yeah, and what is crucial to understand about Rapid is that they remain highly profitable. They are not cutting staff to survive a financial crisis.
They're just doing it because they can.
Exactly. They're cutting staff purely because AI allows them to operate at the exact same capacity with fewer humans.
Which completely shatters the illusion that these layoffs are just for struggling companies trying to save a buck, and regulators are waking up to this reality fast.
Oh, they are furious.
Yeah, you can imagine government officials looking at these profitable tech giants and saying, wait, you are laying off thousands of taxpayers just to feed your massive AI compute budgets. The regulatory backlash is moving at a breakneck pace right now.
It is moving aggressively on multiple legislative fronts.
Right.
In the U.S. Senate, we have the AI Workforce Prepare Act making its way through.
What does that one do?
Well, if passed, it would legally require companies to explicitly prove and estimate exactly how much of a role AI played in any mass layoff event. They'd have to name the specific systems used and demonstrate what human retraining steps they attempted before resorting to terminations.
Wow, that's intense. And then over in the House of Representatives, you have the No Robot Bosses Act, which aims to mandate strict human oversight on any employment decisions guided by algorithm.
Which is going to be incredibly hard to enforce.
Definitely. But the law with the most immediate teeth is at the state level. Colorado's Artificial Intelligence Act takes effect very soon on June 30th, 2026. This law forces human resources departments to actively audit their AI systems to prove they are not causing algorithmic discrimination.
And that is a massive logistical nightmare for companies. I mean, how do you audit an AI?
Right.
HR departments now have to crack open the black box. They have to check the AI's training data to ensure it hasn't accidentally learned proxy variables for race, gender, or age when it sorts through resumes, or when it decides who gets flagged for a layoff.
So it shifts the burden of proof entirely onto the employer.
Exactly.
Meanwhile, the physical infrastructure to support all these laid-off workers is just straining under the weight. The U.S. Department of Labor's Rapid Response Program is seeing massively increased demand right now. They are struggling just to handle the sheer volume of these large-scale workforce transition events.
It's a huge burden on the system.
Put yourself in the shoes of a tech CEO right now. It is an impossible squeeze. On one side, you have soaring AI compute costs and agile competitors adopting vibe coding who will absolutely crush you if you fall behind.
Right.
On the other side, you have furious government regulators demanding audits, retraining proof, and workforce protections. How do you balance cutting-edge technological innovation with ethical workforce management?
It may very well be the defining corporate leadership challenge of this entire decade.
Honestly.
Because, as the Wix situation perfectly illustrates, the transition from human capital to artificial capital is incredibly messy, it's astronomically expensive, and it fundamentally breaks the traditional social contract between an employer and an employee.
And it changes what we even value in the digital world. Which brings me to a lingering, really provocative insight I want to leave you with. It stems from a brilliant debate happening right now among developers watching this AI shift. I want you to really mull over the mechanics of this after we finish today.
It's a fascinating observation about the basic economic principles of supply and demand.
It really is.
Because if vibe coding truly means that absolutely anyone with zero technical skills or training can generate a stunning, highly functional, secure web application in 30 seconds simply by typing a sentence, then the actual creation of software is no longer a scarce resource.
Think about the gravity of that. The ability to code has been the ultimate superpower of the last 30 years. It created the richest companies in human history.
Absolutely.
But if creation becomes free, instant, and infinite, the creation itself is no longer inherently valuable. The only durable moat left in the entire world is human attention.
Right.
AI didn't make capturing attention any cheaper. In fact, it made it vastly more expensive.
Because very soon, the internet is going to be flooded with an infinite amount of AI-generated apps, sites, and platforms. Everyone will have a massive digital megaphone, but the audience, the amount of human eyeballs isn't getting any bigger.
The noise becomes deafening. In the future, the most valuable tech skill won't be building a product. The machine will do that for you while you drink your coffee. The most valuable, lucrative skill on Earth will be the ability to get anyone to actually look at it.
The ground really has shifted beneath our feet.
The earthquake has happened. We aren't watching a demolition anymore. We are all just standing in the rubble, trying to figure out how to build a career on a completely different foundation.
It's a new world.
It is. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. If this conversation helped you understand the massive AI transition a little better, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and share this with a friend or a colleague who is navigating these exact same shifts in their own industry. We'll see you next time.